The Florida Panthers make history.
For the third straight season, the Cats are heading back to the Stanley Cup Final.
And they do so by actually clawing back against the Canes.
We're dropping the puck on that and so much more on this Wednesday night Stanley Cup playoff edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, a Brad Marsh Boston Bruins fan, relocated temporarily to Chicago.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. Cam, I coach a youth baseball team. First game tonight, 4 runs in the first inning, top half, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, baseball-sized hail, heavy storms, flooding, trees down. You know what I equate that storm to?
What's that?
The first time in a long time, Carolina jumps out to a 2-0 lead in the first period. But you know what came? The storm. Yeah. And that storm has been the Florida Panthers. Just a masterful job by the defending Stanley Cup champs to close things out on the road in Carolina and advance to their third consecutive Stanley Cup final.
We may need to start calling them the inevitable Florida Panthers. 3 straight years in the final, the 4th team to do that since 1980, which there was hockey played before 1980, but it was almost common back then to go to like 3 straight finals. Since then, it has been the Islanders and the Oilers, both in the 80s. And then the last 6 years, all teams from Florida. It was the Lightning for 3 straight. Now the Panthers for 3 straight. And for the 2nd straight year, they did not touch the Prince of Wales trophy. Worked for them last year. It looked like it was going to be Carolina's night as we started this one. 5 minutes in, Gustav Forsling, who Eddie Olczyk at one point in this series called an unbelievable defenseman, had an unbelievable giveaway that Sebastian Aho converts for 1-0 Carolina. 6-0 in the playoffs when they score first. That wasn't going to hold up. Late on in the first, it was Mikko Mikkola whiffing on a pass up the boards. It was Aho again, takes it, shoots it through Mikkola's legs and right through Bob. Got a big piece of it. 2-0 Carolina after 1. And right at the end of the first period, you're showing the teams going into the locker room. TNT runs a Game 6 promo immediately after the whistle. Stick with us for Game 6 of Carolina and Florida. And then that storm you were talking about. Then it comes. 3 goals in about like 3.5 minutes or whatever it was.
Less than 5 minutes in the second period.
2 of them in 30 seconds. Matthew Tkachuk gets on the board with a deflection on a power play goal, and then he makes a really nice play in front of the bench area, takes a hit, but gets the pass to Rodrigues. Little give and go. Back to Rodrigues.
That was my favorite play of the night. That give and go was just icing on the cake, just so pretty.
Look, that was a pretty good goal, but there was highlight of the night kind of stuff in the third period. So it's 3-2 Florida going into the third. Carolina does strike back. They tie it up at 3-3. The place is going absolutely nuts with about 12 minutes left. It was Seth Jarvis. Beautiful.
Loudest I've heard the building.
You see that? He got like a little bit of space. He almost like flips the puck onto his stick. And I said chips the goaltender, but really just kind of pushes it past him for 3-3. And
Bobrovsky wanted that back too because he could have poke checked it. He was out in the crease. He looked like he hesitated, and then he went back in the crease. At that point, it was too late. Jarvis made him pay. And the building, that ripped the ceiling off the Lenovo Center. It was as loud as I've heard all playoffs this entire series because those fans knew how critical that goal was.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's a tie game, third period. Then 7.5 minutes left. Sasha Barkov. We talked about the stars in this series, and this wasn't the only game they showed up, but it felt like it was few and far between for the Panthers, even though they were still dominating most of this postseason. Tonight was their night. Barkov takes Dmitry Orlov for a ride, a pretty physical defenseman in Dmitry Orlov, rides him all along the end boards, then leaves him for dead, and a beautiful, beautiful backhand pass right across the crease to Carter Verhaeghe, who's coming from behind the net. 4-3 Panthers. And then later on in the game, the drama does not go away because Sam Bennett takes a stupid slashing penalty with exactly 3 minutes left. Carolina on the power play, down 1. They pull the goaltender, so it's 6-on-4. And this is perfect Florida Panthers that makes you want to rage quit as a fan of everybody else because there's literally like 1 second left in the penalty. And they are able to just send the puck down, right? Empty net down there, and they're shorthanded. And at the time it goes across the red line, Sam Bennett comes out of the box. He's way ahead of everybody.
Perfect.
And just grabs it, tucks it right in. So Sam Bennett, one of the most hateable players in the league, now leads the playoffs in goals, okay? He had a couple in this one. He takes a stupid penalty and comes out and gets the inevitable empty netter. And
that's hockey,
Panthers,
baby. That is hockey.
That's
baby.
Panthers hockey, man.
That is Panthers
for sure.
hockey.
The inevitable Florida Panthers are back in the Stanley Cup Final. Locked On Panthers host Armando Velez on what that means.
It's another clincher on the road for the Panthers. This time, it's for their spot in the Stanley Cup Final. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to quickly break down the Panthers' 5-3 win over the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 5 to clinch their spot in their third straight Stanley Cup Final. And the Panthers had to do it in comeback fashion after being down 2-0 in the first period after some poor passes in the neutral zone. They turned it on in the second period with 3 goals in less than 5 minutes, including 2 in less than 30 seconds. Matthew Tkachuk had a power play goal and a secondary assist in those 30 seconds. And although the Carolina Hurricanes did score to tie the game after a little bit of a broken play off a breakout pass by Gustav Forsling, wizardry by Aleksander Barkov to set up Carter Verhaeghe to get the GWG on the night, and Sam Bennett out of the penalty box knocked it into the empty net. We'll break all this down on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your team every day.
I should note, Bennett had an assist earlier, so we'll go on an assist in this one. And again, we talk about the stars of this team, of which Sam Bennett's probably on that second tier, even though he's a heck of a player. Tkachuk had a goal and an assist. Tkachuk had a goal and an assist in this game. Bennett has a couple of points. The last 2 goals of the game were both assisted by Reinhart and Barkov. And Sergei Bobrovsky was massive at the end of that game. Couple of grade A chances for Carolina that he turned away. I don't know what else to say, Tyler. This team, it's just...
Well, you said a lot. You said a lot already.
Yeah, I tried. They're inevitable, man. They're so inevitable.
We're 8 minutes in. I feel like I've said 3 words.
Here's your chance. Tell me what you think about the Florida Panthers going to the 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup Final.
For starters, I love the Chiefs jersey. I'm from Pittsburgh. I went to Penn State. Johnstown smack in the middle there on the way. That's where they filmed that movie. They used that ice rink. So a lot of history in the state of Pennsylvania. Great hockey movies. As for this game, let's go back to Sasha Barkov on that game-winning goal, because I call that the B&H method. Body, handles. First, there was the body behind the net along the glass, using that strength to get possession of the puck. And then the deke, the handles, to get around and put that perfect pass for Carter Verhaeghe for that go-ahead goal. Ended up being the game-winning goal. Just a beautiful sequence for the Florida Panthers. That was a fantastic play. And then you go back to when Florida tied it in the second period, 2-2, those 2 goals in 30 seconds. Evan Rodrigues becoming the 19th Panther, unique Panther, to score during these playoffs. The record is 21 different players set by the 2019 Boston Bruins. So this Florida Panthers team has gotten production all over the place. They're physical. They can move the puck. They annoy teams. They get under team skin. And that is impactful this time of the year when you allow the emotions and create emotions on the opposition to create bad penalties. And it was actually Sam Bennett, when he took that stupid penalty with 3 minutes left, I'm like, what in the world are you doing? Why? You're up a goal. Why? Why are you doing that?
No sense.
And what happens? Sometimes it's a lucky game. It's a game of inches. The puck just somehow ends up right where he needs it after popping out of the penalty box. That empty net goal was critical because Carolina was putting on the heaters late. The crowd was into it. They knew what was at stake. And here we are again, third straight season, Florida advancing to the Stanley Cup Final. 9th team in NHL history and second in the last 40 years to reach 3 consecutive Stanley Cup Finals.
That's pretty good, man.
And we're forgetting about this one part that Florida was on an 0-for-10 streak on the power play. And finally, Matthew Tkachuk with that redirect off that Aaron Ekblad shot from the point, they finally get a power play goal. Do you know why that was? Guess who was back in the lineup tonight?
Who's that?
Mr. Reinhart.
Sam Reinhart, baby. Yep.
When Sam Reinhart was in the lineup, 4 for 5 on the power play in those first 2 games. Don't have Sam Reinhart. Power play is just different. Sometimes you just need that guy. And the top of that umbrella, the way in which they were passing atop that umbrella power play, perfect. Set up that shot. Tkachuk right in front, using that big body. Florida just had everything clicking, even though for the first time in a long time, they were trailing 2-0 after the first period. They came into this game outscoring their opponents 17-11 in that opening 20 minutes of play. Awesome. Carolina, on the other hand, came in being outscored 12-6 in that first period. So the script flipped a little bit in this game, yet it didn't matter. 5 straight road wins now for Florida. They're 8-2 on the road in these playoffs. They're outscoring opponents crazy. They outscored Carolina and Raleigh in this series 15-5. You wonder why Carolina couldn't force a game 6? It's because they kept giving up a ton of goals. Florida's offense, they had no answers.
And that's why they are going to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd straight year, thanks in large part to that offense. And what a game this was, but by far the best game of the series. The Panthers take it 5-3 and advance. But Carolina, they showed some fight in there, and they're a team that sticks around every year in the postseason. Let's take a look at the Hurricanes and what this could mean for them going forward. Let's do it next on Locked On NHL Game Night. But first, today's episode of Locked On NHL Game Night is brought to you by FanDuel. The playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, the major momentum shifts, and all the can't-miss moments in the trophy presentations. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before the puck drops and live. Player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And they put it in your hands. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back that up with the same game parlay? And you think $200 in bonus bets could add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? I think so. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you guessed it, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Let me say that one more time for those of you at home. Head to FanDuel.com, place that first $5 bet. When it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Back here, Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart. Alongside is Tyler Feldman. We thought this series was going to be over in 4 games. On Monday, the Carolina Hurricanes showed a ton of fight in Sunrise on Monday night. They showed a ton of fight specifically in the beginning of this game. On Wednesday night in Game 5, they showed some fight back after falling down 3-2. I don't know how much it means now, Tyler. Their season's over, but do you think this Hurricanes team showed you enough that you're like, yeah, maybe they will be back there next year?
They need to make some moves because it seems like they're getting to the same point in the season. They're a playoff caliber team. But again, the story going into these playoffs was who was the star or the stars. They have a lot of really good players. Svechnikov. We saw Sebastian Aho come to play, scoring 2 goals in that first period. Jacob Slavin on the blue line. Freddie Anderson played well at points. But something's missing because Rod Brind'Amour has this team right there. And maybe that was the frustration with Paul Maurice during the handshakes.
Yeah, what was up with that, by the way?
I'm not sure.
A little heated.
There's a history there. I mean, they know each other well. So it's not like these are just two random head coaches that don't have ties. Paul Maurice used to coach the Carolina Hurricanes. So I think without knowing what was said, it seemed like there was some pent-up frustration from Rod Brind'Amour because he understands that it's like Groundhog Day. The same situation year after year now with this Carolina Hurricanes team. Remember, they're now 1-16, 1-15 in their last 16 Eastern Conference Final games. They snapped a 15-game slide in Game 4 by forcing this Game 5. Yet, even with them taking a 2-0 lead, I said to myself, well, that's the worst lead you want to have in hockey, and you have it after only 20 minutes of play against the defending Stanley Cup champs, who have pretty much dominated this entire series. Yeah. So, for me, if I'm a Carolina Hurricanes fan, sure, I'm thrilled to be in this similar spot, but at a certain point, Cam, you're wasting years for some of your top guys on that team. This team needs to make a couple moves, bring in either some veterans or some actual talent, figure out how to make that happen, because if not, it's rinse and repeat with this Carolina Hurricanes team.
And if it is Groundhog Day, then our Bill Murray is Zach Martin of Locked On Canes, who is at the Lenovo Center. Here's his breakdown of what went wrong for Carolina tonight and yet again in the conference final.
Tough series for the Carolina Hurricanes as their season is now over following a 5-3 loss in Game 5 of the Florida Panthers. Sebastian Aho got a couple goals in the first period, got him a good lead. Unfortunately, Florida scores 3 more, and then Seth Jarvis does tie it, and then Barkov with the backbreaker, and then Bennett coming out of the box with the dagger, and they lose the series 4-1, and now the Florida Panthers go on to the Stanley Cup Final. Gotta give them a lot of props, but not the way you wanted the season to go. But for the fact that the Hurricanes even made it this far when people thought it was a step back year for them, and there was a lot of big question marks, you got to take some positives out of this team for where they've gone to make it to where they're at. The Eastern Conference Final, a lot of people thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. Talked about a lot of resilience on this team. So now it's wait for exit interviews and then draft and then free agency in July. But overall, super proud of this team. And now it's going to be a very busy offseason for the Carolina Hurricanes.
I can't help but think, because you made a great point before we heard Zach, they do need a star. Like, you look at the teams that go to the Stanley Cup Finals, like, you do need a star. I know it's not basketball, but you have to have that. And the last 2 years, at different points, they've had Jake Gensel and they've had Mikko Rantanen, and neither one worked out. And they continue to push on, right? They're here, but they don't have what that takes to get over the top. And, someone in the media asked Rod Brind'Amour after the game, you guys have a very distinct style. It's a little bit different than pretty much anyone in the league, but it doesn't get you over the hump. Are there any thoughts to changing that style? And he came back and said, I saw that same style from Florida. They just do it better than us. Tyler, do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think that the Panthers just play it a little bit better than Carolina does? Or is there some sort of core shift that the Hurricanes need to make? Or both?
Imagine you're walking down an alley and there are the Florida Panthers in this dark alley and you see them.
I don't like that. They don't.
And at the same time, what if I told you it was the Carolina Hurricanes in that dark alley? How do you feel? A little bit better, don't you?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. Maybe a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. There's a physicality. It's not being scared, but the Panthers have imposed their will in a way where you can say that style. Well, if you say that the Panthers are doing it a little bit better, then Rod Brind'Amour, make your team more physical.
Yeah.
I just also need to say, I hope Zach Martin's okay. It seemed like there was maybe a hurricane warning inside the Lenovo Center. He was in like some closet or like staircase.
He's just
for protection, out of breath slightly. I know he's
Rod Brind'Amour was on a warpath after
but
this.
I know he's hustling to get that clip, and we are so appreciative of you, Zach, and you do such a great job. But to me, seeing him in that like safety environment, that bunker environment, that's what it's like when you're going up against the Florida Panthers. That's what I was thinking. Because you can say the Florida Panthers just have a better style. It's been 3 straight years of that.
Yeah.
And you've made no adjustments. So either it's personnel Or coaching wise, if you're saying they just do it better, well, you've had 3 years to do it better. I'm not saying Carolina needs to move on from Rod Brind'Amour because he's had a ton of success and there's been consistency. But that answer does make me go, well.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it is on paper, right? Carolina looked like they were making that push with the Rantanen deal. But you'll remember at the trade deadline, Brind'Amour did, I want to say it was a radio hit, and it really didn't sound like he was on board with this. It didn't really sound like Rod Brind'Amour was pounding the table saying, we need to put it out there and get Mikko Rantanen. I don't know how much of a difference it would have made in this series, but I just think of the Rantanens and the Gensels, and in this case, maybe even Marty Necas instead of Rantanen. Does that make a difference here? Now you have to ask those questions, because of those three, what you come away with is Logan Stankoven, who's a good, young, promising player, but not what this team needed at this time to get over the top. So a lot of questions on that Carolina side as they go out in the Eastern Conference Final. Again, of course, as you know by now, the Panthers are on their way to the Stanley Cup Final. We have a question to go through in the third period. Are we living in a Panthers era in NHL history? Let's talk about it next on Locked On NHL Game Night. Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check out our daily shows on Locked On NHL. And of course, like and subscribe to keep up with us after every Stanley Cup playoff game. They're all going to be finals games pretty soon here. But you could find us here. Just subscribe, ring that notification bell, get notified every time we're dropping the video. Tyler, this might be the stat of the night. In the first 28 years of the Panthers' existence, they won 4 playoff series. This is now their 10th series win in the last 3 postseasons. You remember it was 22, they won the President's Trophy, go out in the first round. 23, they're playing one of the greatest regular season teams ever, if not the best ever, in the Bruins, and they're down 3-1 in that series. And since then, they have won 10 straight playoff series and are going for a second straight Stanley Cup. So my question to you, Tyler Feldman, are we living in a Florida Panthers era of NHL history right now?
We are living in a Florida era of NHL history.
Yeah,
6 straight Stanley Cup Finals now. A team from the state of Florida will be represented. First, it was Tampa Bay for 3 straight, and now it's Florida for 3 straight. Panthers, Lightning. Where the sun shines, the ice refuses to melt. And we are seeing such a spectacular season of just really good hockey in the Sunshine State, which is great because growing up, all I remember about the Panthers is Pavel Bure. Really, that's the only...
And a half-empty building. That's really
all I can remember. And to see this change and to see another team have a season like this, of course, there was the Red Wings, the Penguins recently, the Lightning, obviously all those teams, the Oilers back in the late 80s, 90s. So many great seasons for some great franchises. And for me, if I'm a Florida Panthers fan, I say enjoy this. Be where your feet are at. Be intentional, understanding that this could be that one season of your life that your team is being this dominant and reaching 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals. Because in my reality, as I look at my Penguins, I'm saying to myself, okay, I've seen 3 Stanley Cup wins for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I may not see another one. I said this to you the other day.
I think you're
ever going to see
overreacting,
Pittsburgh Pirates World Series championship? I have no idea.
That's unlikely. Yeah.
Sports are weird.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, you've just got to smell the roses if you're a Florida Panthers fan, because this is special.
Because let me remind you as well. The Leafs won 6 Stanley Cups in the 60s and have not won it since, have not been to the final since. You had your era. You had your Penguins, you back-to-back Stanley Cups, incredible run. Some of us didn't even get that. Some of us didn't get an era. But
it's been 50 years since the Flyers won a Stanley Cup, which is totally fine by me.
After back-to-back.
But it's been 50 years.
Yeah. Yep. For a team with the 3rd highest winning percentage of any franchise in the history of the league, by the way. And it's been 50 years. And I just want to say, I want to put this out there on Locked On NHL Game Night. If Gary Bettman watches this, which, look, our subscribers and view count have been through the roof the last couple of weeks, so maybe he does. Please, no Orlando, no Jacksonville. Do not put another team in Florida, okay? It's to the point where these teams have been so dominant the last 6 years that they're asking on the TNT postgame, do the Florida teams have an unfair advantage because they don't have the state tax and they've got great weather? Like that absolutely plays into this, which sucks as hockey fans because the best hockey fans are from the places that do have state income tax and bad weather. But here they are, 3 straight for them after 3 straight for the Lightning.
Hey, Cam.
Oh, yeah.
Can I just interject? There's
Please.
someone who commented on a recent video called Nunya Business saying you're on crack. I'm pretty sure that's Gary Bettman.
It could
That's
be.
That's gotta be an alias for Gary Bettman.
Bettman's burner.
Yeah, Bettman's burner.
All right. We'll see if we see any more from Bettman. From Nunya Business Bettman.
Nunya _business. Biz with a Z. Ness.
That sounds like Gary to me. I don't know.
If that
He is
doesn't
always
sound
trying to be
like
cool.
Gary to you, then you're the problem, okay?
I've been told that a lot, that I'm the problem, but usually it's just from my loved ones.
Oilers get it done? Oilers get it done?
That was going to be my next question. We teased the final in last night's show. I think we were even more confident in Florida getting there, but it very much looks like we're on course for that. The longest distance between 2 Stanley Cup final cities for the 2nd year in a row. How about that?
Incredible. Also,
Northernmost
Cam,
and southernmost, I think.
I don't want to sign off tonight without saying, remember I said my gut was telling me Canes in 6? Can we just laugh about that for a quick second?
I've been laughing about it the last 4 or 5 days, Tyler. It's almost
just when you
sad
thought
at
it was
this
going to be
point.
Canes in 6. How about Cats in 5?
I'll go back to the era talk with this. We're watching the game tonight. My girlfriend was in the room, and
Hey,
she
congrats
said,
on the girlfriend, by the way. That's awesome.
humble brag, no need to brag.
That's incredible.
She goes, it feels like the Panthers are like the best team. And I'm like,
Smart lady.
you put it well. You put it well. The Panthers are kind of like the best team. They were last year. They are 4 more wins away from proving they are kind of like the best team once again. Panthers win at 5-3. They're on to the Stanley Cup Final. Probably tomorrow it will be Shukri and Eddie breaking down the rematch as the Oilers go for their Game 5 victory in the Western Conference. That is the night that was in the NHL and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Guys, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, helps us keep our jobs. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping a video on YouTube. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And a quick reminder, we're here after every Stanley Cup playoff game, 7 nights a week. You'll hear from the local experts and the guys like us, Tyler Feldman and Cam Stewart, on Locked On NHL Game Night.